What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Thursday for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I'm your host, Alex Van Aken, and today I'm joined by Charles Hart. How you doing, Charles?
Hello, I'm good. I'm riding that Nintendo Direct high, baby.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one. We're going to get into it, of course.
It hits different in February. Like, you need it really bad.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. We're also joined by Kyle Hilliard. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm like 70%.
Yeah, you've been sick.
Yeah, you know that scene. You'll get this, Alex, in Princess Mononoke. There's the scene where Ashitaka is like sick and he like sleeps for a couple days. And he wakes up full of life, and he and he runs down the cave, and then he like stops because he's like, oh wait, I'm still injured. I have not recovered yet, and he kind of like falls over. That's how I'm at the stage of illness where that's how I feel every morning. I wake up and I'm like, yes, let's take on the day, and then I make it to the kitchen. I'm like, oh, I'm still sick. Okay, not quite.
And then a giant wolf has to tell you to slow down.
Yes, yeah,
and to take care of yourself.
That's what I call my family, the giant wolves.
Yeah. And rounding this out, Marcus Stewart. Hello.
Hello. I don't know how I can top giant wolves and being horribly sick. I guess if it makes you feel better, Kyle, I feel great.
It doesn't.
That probably does help him a lot. He can see what the peak, human form looks like, and that might inspire him to recover quicker.
I mean, I am always envious of Marcus, just in general, just the way he looks and acts and is, and so this is, you're my goal basically, and more so now than ever.
It was weird when you called me the perfect organism one time
and asked for a bit of your hair. That was I was so overstepping there.
Well, thank you all for joining me today. We're going to be talking about the Nintendo Direct that happened yesterday. We're going to get into a lot. We've been playing a lot of things: Octopath Traveler 2, Metroid Prime, the new Game Boy collection on Nintendo Switch, and more. And then we're going to talk a little bit about this first news story here, and that is that EA reportedly has canceled a single-player game set in the Titanfall and Apex Legends universe, which is a major bummer for me as a fan of both of those things. This is written up by Wes. You can head over to GameInformer.com/news and read it for yourself. It reads, quote, Electronic Arts has reportedly canceled a single-player game set in the shared Apex Legends and Titanfall universe. This news comes by way of Bloomberg, which reports that 3 people familiar with the matter say EA canceled the project, codenamed TFL, or Titanfall Legends, that was in development at Apex Legends developer Respawn Entertainment. Roughly 50 people were on the team that was working on this game, and EA will reportedly attempt to find positions for these employees elsewhere within the company. If positions cannot be found, some might be laid off with severance packages, according to Bloomberg. The publication says that Muhammad Alavi, who worked on Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends as a designer, was set to direct this now canceled game, but he left the company in 2022 rather. It's likely this canceled single-player game set in the Apex Legends and Titanfall universe was the one hinted at back in July in the job postings on Respawn's website that referred to the game as, quote, Apex Universe FPS incubation title. Word of this cancellation comes shortly after EA announced it was shutting down Apex Legends Mobile and Battlefield Mobile and shuttering the latter developers' Industrial Toys as well. Plus, in the same financial results where EA revealed it was shutting these games down, the company revealed that Respawn's upcoming single-player Star Wars game, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, had been delayed to April. Of course, that source is from Bloomberg, once again. But yeah, that is kind of what is going on. I am bummed because, one, I love Titanfall. I think Titanfall 1, granted, it was a Xbox exclusive, but I feel like that game kind of got written off by a lot of people because it was multiplayer only. But obviously it really set the foundation for the Titanfall universe, and man, I loved that game. I played so much of Titanfall. And then Titanfall 2, of course, has that critically acclaimed campaign, and Apex Legends I have poured hundreds and hundreds of hours into. And at one point in time, I hosted the #1 Apex Legends podcast. By the way, fun little fact. So this universe is near and dear to my heart. So I'm really bummed we aren't going to be getting a single player game set in that universe. I think I had heard through the grapevine, this is not confirmed, I can't remember the source on this, but I had heard that like one of the mechanics was like you were going to be borrowing powers from Apex Legends and like using them throughout the game.
Like through the single player campaign, you would use the abilities of the Legends from the multiplayer game. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I need to confirm that. Don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would have been cool. But are you guys fans of this universe? What do you think about this news?
I love Titanfall 2. It's probably it is in my like top 5 single player shooter campaigns ever. That thing is just buck wild. And I don't play Apex anymore, but I did like it a lot, like especially around like the first few months of launch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just waiting for Titanfall 3 like a lot of people. It's just sort of like whittling away until that comes out. So originally when this was announced, it was like, I hope this isn't that. And it seems like it's not. I don't know what this would have been, because like single player Titanfall game set in the Apex universe is like, it's like the same thing. They are the same universe. So
yeah. Apex like heavily draws from Titanfall.
Yeah, or not even that. Aren't they like straight up in the same universe, just with like a significant time gap between like Titanfall 2 and Apex?
Yeah, a lot of the characters and like supporting characters have like ties to Titanfall. Yeah.
Like, I wonder if this game is going to bridge that gap, just because of the name convention of like Titanfall Legends, and we're going to see where these legends came from and maybe tie them a bit more directly to the Titanfall stuff. That could have been interesting. I mean, I want to see just new single player anything from that universe, even if it's not Titanfall 3.
Even just from Respawn, like that's all I want from that developer is single player stuff. But I say that as someone who's just not big into multiplayer. Like even the Titanfall multiplayer I never got really into, but like Fallen Order and Titanfall 2 single player campaign, like just Respawn, please, like make more single player campaigns. Like that's why I'm disappointed in this news, because that's what I want from that studio.
Yeah, I'm same as you, Kyle. Like I'm not a huge multiplayer guy. I think they do a good job, but yeah, this is hearing them lose another single player shooter thing. It's kind of like, oh man.
Yeah. Valkyrie is one of the characters that if you haven't played in a while, you might not know about her, but I think she was introduced like a year ago. And her whole back, she essentially is the one that has the Gundam wings on her back, and she can like relocate the team with her jetpack. And like she has a lot of cool like tech that is associated with Titans, and her entire backstory involves as a kid she stole a Titan from her dad, who was a Titan pilot, and her dad ended up having to save her and died. And so like that's her tragic backstory, is her dad was a pilot, she was going on a joyride, and he ended up dying from it.
That's more or less the plot of that indie game Stonefly, if anyone remembers that from like a year or two ago.
Yeah. And so I always thought like that would be a really cool setting, or a cool jumping off point,
like an interesting story to see that would let you play with Titans and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt like that was a really good way to merge the two, because like this is a character that bridges both of those games really well. And yeah, so that's a bummer. Do you guys think this means that, like, because they said this was like an incubation title?
Yeah, what does that mean exactly? Incubation title, like just something they're working on for a while, or what's the?
Seems like experimental, maybe. Like maybe the direction wasn't necessarily set completely. It sounds like the designer, what was their name? Mohammed Alavi, the Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends designer, was leading it. So I'm sure there was some direction there. But when you say incubation, it makes me think, yeah, like, okay, we don't have it fully formed in our head. let's bring in some experts to help round out this team, this relatively smaller team by EA standards. I feel like 50 people, you know. It seems like this wasn't just like Titanfall 3. It seems like it was something, you know, that required a bit more vision casting, I guess. And I'm sure it's really difficult to tie, like, properly and smartly tie together two different games, even though they are in the same universe. Do you guys think this means that like Titanfall 3 is off the books for a while? Off the table?
Yeah. I don't think there's much cash in that name, sadly. Like, I think us on this call would be like, hell yeah, Titanfall 3. But I think they'd have to call it something like Apex Legends single player game or something.
Yeah.
You know? Like, yeah, so maybe ideas from that incubation come to exist somewhere else, but I don't think it's going to be called Titanfall 3.
I mean, I wonder if, like, by calling it Titanfall Legends, that was supposed to let the Apex Legend fans know, like, hey, this is a Titanfall thing, technically. So
Yeah, maybe
you should go check those games out if you really like this thing, because we want to make a third one of these. Yeah, I'm still holding out hope that it happens. It's probably not going to come anytime soon. You know, they sent Titanfall 2 out to die when that game launched. And
Which game did it launch aside? Battlefield 1?
it was like in between a Battlefield and a Call of Duty. Like, it was like in that tight window of like these two juggernauts, and like, yeah, this is a good spot to throw a Titanfall sequel in here that winds up being better than both, but doesn't have the same name value. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's naivete on my part, but there's a part of me that's like, man, I think they'll go back to it eventually, right? You know, that it's even
I'd
though
love
it's
for them
sold,
to.
yeah, like people love that second game. There's money there somewhere.
I don't know. I had a thought and it escaped me. This is the problem with recording in the early morning hours of 10 a.m. On a Thursday. You know, overall, I'm bummed. I would have loved to see what this turned into. Oh well. Hopefully, you know, in the next few years, I feel like they know that people, that at least a devoted subsect of people want another Titanfall game. Apex Legends is a huge game. Oh, I remember my point. I'm not too surprised about Apex Legends Mobile, just because I feel like, and I might be talking ignorantly here, but I feel like Battle Royale just never struck me as a game, as a genre that works well on mobile. And granted, Fortnite was huge on mobile for a long time.
Isn't it still?
But no, that you can no longer play it.
Oh,
on mobile.
okay.
Is it on Android still, or is that gone also?
I'm pretty sure it's gone completely.
Gotcha.
And a lot of that had to do with, like, I'm sure, like, the Apple stuff, but they, I guess, didn't see it was worth keeping around, so they, you know, shuttered it, and you can't play on mobile anymore. And that was like the biggest case for Battle Royale on a phone.
Well, I mean, there's Garena Free Fire. Like, there are some. I mean, and PUBG Mobile is huge. Like, those actually are the two big ones. Maybe even bigger than Fortnite at its apex on mobile, at least. And like, but yeah, no one else can really crack it. Like, everyone wants a piece of that Free Fire and PUBG pie, but like Final Fantasy couldn't do it, Apex couldn't do it. Like,
yeah, I think, like, though that subset of people have their game, and, you know, the developers of those games launched those at a great time. I mean, PUBG was kicked off Battle Royale. Like, it is why we have this genre today, largely. And, you know, I don't remember the timeline of them publishing PUBG Mobile, but I remember it being like, I think it was shortly after PUBG console came out, if I recall correctly. So like PUBG was still like pretty big, and that's when they launched it. And whereas Apex, I think Apex Mobile came out like at least 2 years after the launch of Apex.
Yeah, I covered it pretty closely during my time at GameSpot when I was like the mobile guy.
Nice.
That was like a big launch for my section of the site, you know.
Yeah.
But
was it 2021 or?
Well, when did I work? It would have been It would have been 2022 actually, because that's when I was working at GameSpot. Yeah.
So 3 years after the launch of the first game, or of the original game.
I don't think it even quite made it a year. Maybe.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a bummer. And yeah, I think we're gonna move on. But I just wanted to call it out and say, you know, on this here platform, we want more single player stuff from that universe. I think that'd be sick. But for now, we'll just have to buy Titanfall 2 for $4.99 and replay it.
It's always $4.99.
I know it is, right?
That game is almost 7 years old. I mean, it will be this year, which is kind of wild to me.
Yeah. I was thinking about what game was I thinking about the other day? It might have been Breath of the Wild, and I was just thinking how it's on 6 years, and I feel like I just played that game yesterday. Well, let's get into the topic of the week. Speaking of Breath of the Wild, Nintendo had a Nintendo Direct yesterday, and I don't have like a full list we're going to go through, but I kind of want to talk about the highlights for each of us. I know we'll get into Tears of the Kingdom. Game Boy games are now on Switch now. There's Metroid Prime Remaster. There's a lot of like smaller, like Disney Illusion Island.
Yeah, Pikmin 4. Don't forget
Pikmin 4, yeah. Professor Layton. There was a lot of hits from people.
It was a good one, man. This is probably the best one in a while.
Yeah. Were there any? What were like the top hits for you, Kyle? Anything, you know, besides the big stuff that really stood out to you?
Well, we got to talk about Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, it was expected once they said, like, oh, we're going to talk about games from the first half of the year. I was almost dreading it. I was like, oh, we're going to get, like, a big trailer or something. And sure enough, that's what they finished out the show with. And, like, it's that thing where it's, like, which I kind of like, is, like, I still really don't know a lot about Tears of the Kingdom. Like, and I'm totally fine with that. Like, and then they, like, even the things that they showed, it's just funny how they're, like, it's just this rapid fire thing of like you're going to be grinding on rails. There's going to be vehicles, and it's like, okay, they remind. I made a joke about it on Twitter, but it reminded me of Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. Like they looked like these sort of contraptions that Link almost built. And I'm like, is that what that is? Is there going to be like a system where you're like building these vehicles, or are there just a few that you kind of find?
I wonder if you could get it from the scientist that helps you. Or the scientist up on the hill. Doesn't he like help you get the ancient arrows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the other thing that's cool about it is like you see all these images from the game, and it's like I know those locations, which is interesting, right? It's like, and that's another thing that it's like that's all the more reason to get excited. Weirdly, it's like I like that it's like an opportunity to revisit this place that I'm pretty familiar with, arguably very familiar with, but it's going to be under this new lens with new abilities, and like there's going to be this whole other section up in the sky, like. Yeah, it just every time I see anything from that game, it gets me pumped. We got to see more of like whatever's going on with his arm. I think Ganon is speaking in the beginning. It's just like there's just so much. There's like, but it all happened in like 2 minutes, and I was like, oh god, I know so much more and so little still. It's wild.
Do we know for sure if that it's Ganon? I know it's heavily implied, but they've never.
It's all speculation.
Because there's still a part of me that thinks it's not him and that it's a new villain.
Who do you think it is? Oh, just a new guy?
Either a new guy, or maybe they like reinvent someone like Vatty from the other games, you know? But I don't know, because it's like directly after Breath of the Wild, I feel like, it feels like if we're going by like Zelda reincarnation rules, it's like too soon for Ganon to come back. So I still feel like it's someone else.
I think it's Link. It's Link talking.
That is a theory. It's old Link.
So you subscribe to that? You subscribe to that, Kyle?
No, I don't. I don't think that's Link.
Okay.
Old Link was in Twilight Princess, sort of subtly.
That's true.
Teaching Link moves and stuff like that, and
right.
I wonder if maybe there's something like that going on. I don't know, but I'm pumped.
I love that we've gotten such little information that like any small thing just gets me so excited. Like it was 2 minutes, and Kyle, you're like, it was so full of stuff, and I was like, it also wasn't. Like we still barely have any idea of what the game is more than we did before. But there's things of like, there's a new flying enemy, dude. What's up with that? That's so
homing
crazy.
Arrows.
Yeah, what? That I'm so excited.
Link has a Green Goblin glider thing.
Yeah, right. He has different gliders now. You can have a Majora's Mask glider, which is like, come on, that's great.
But now he has one he can ride on top of, and it's like I'm gonna straight up Green Goblin, like just throw bombs from there on top of like moblins.
I like how they saw all the clips of people essentially making their own like helicopters with octo balloons in the first game. They're like, okay, let's like make this a thing.
Oh, I did that all the time, so I'm glad I don't.
Yeah.
Do you think the motorcycle's back? 'Cause I love that motorcycle in the expansion for Breath of the Wild. So I feel like, I mean, that's probably why they're going the vehicle route, because people really like that edition.
I feel like they got to do the thing of like in God of War Ragnarok, you start without all your upgrades and stuff, and they're like, oh, the Fimbulwinter has sucked my power out. I feel like they got to do something like this, where it's like, oh, Link's been too far from the Divine Beast, so he doesn't have any like the abilities anymore.
I will make a call now. I don't think the motorcycle is going to be in the game, at least not initially, because like that motorcycle was, to me, felt like very much like it needed to be kind of like final DLC. Here's your wild reward for playing so much of Breath of the Wild and investing in the DLC. Is like, we'll give you a vehicle that you can call on anytime from any location. That's, I think, faster than any horse. Like, to have that in the game from the get-go, or even like partway through, I think it's almost like overpowered. But I'm not a Nintendo designer, so maybe they built the world around being able to use that. But I don't think it's gonna be in Tears of the Kingdom, not initially.
Maybe you could
It
turn
can't
Epona
fly.
into him. Oh, that's true.
So that's something. Not saying that it
is-
would be there, but that would be one limitation of it. Is there's a lot.
That'd be
of
cool,
sky
like that
stuff.
GTA 6 mod motorcycle that everyone uses, where it's like it takes off like a plane. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. Oh god, man. Also the rail grinding with the shield, which was like a mechanic that was never really utilized all that much in the first game.
Oh, like the
It was kinda
shield
like a
sliding?
fun- shield sliding, yeah. It was like a fun little, like, it was up to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to see like properly designed sections for that, which looks like they're very high up on like mountaintops and stuff, which is like a cool way to kind of blend the sky area and the bottom area, like
Yeah.
the land, kind of the in between. Like, it's still like really high, but we haven't been there yet. Oh, it looks so good. I cannot wait.
Marcus, you mentioned Epona. It looked like Link was riding Epona in this trailer, and I was thinking about how, like, I don't know if we've seen a lot of horses in this game, and that was such a big
Oh,
part of the
interesting.
other one. Like, I don't know, and I don't know if they were just using like the Epona colored horse, because that's kind of like standard Link horse, but that's a thing I've been wondering about, of like, if there's vehicles now, are there still going to be horses?
I assume if it's like Kyle said, if like the vehicles are, well, maybe at least the motorcycle would be a late thing if it's in there. I guess it depends on how long it takes to start doing the vehicle stuff, like whether you have to build them or you find them somehow. But I would assume that the horse system is the same, of like, having stables and all that stuff, just because I guess I don't see a reason to not have it, just off the top of my head. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of like the later Saints Row games, where, especially like Saints Row 4, where you're like, oh, there's still cars you can drive, but why would you? Because you can like fly and jump around and get around way faster with superpowers, but it's still here if you want to do it.
Right,
You
yeah.
know?
I mean, that's what the motorcycle does once you get it in Breath of the Wild. It's like, well, I'm never going to ride a horse again.
I'm very curious how they're gonna, like, I think there's a lot of anticipation going into this game, obviously, and there's, I think, some worry, like, oh, we're there, it's the same areas as last time. I think, like, overall, like, I don't need it to be, I think I've accepted I'm okay if it's just a weird game, and I don't need it to be the same level of
It cannot
importance
be
to
as
me.
revelatory. Like, it's just,
No,
it can't.
yeah,
It just
it's
cannot
impossible.
be. So maybe.
And so I'm kind of preparing myself, like, it's not going to be like the first time I played Breath of the Wild, but what if it's this really weird, enjoyable, like you said, Kyle, like looking at that world through another lens. And I think I've replayed Breath of the Wild more times than any other game. And that doesn't mean I've beaten it every time I've gone back to it, but I've gone back to it so many times because I just love that version of Hyrule, and I find new things every time I play. And so I think I'm kind of preparing myself to just be in for a weird ride, and just to like appreciate it for what it is.
I hope it runs well. That's my
Yeah,
other
yeah,
concern.
yeah.
Like, the first game
Yeah.
ran good, but also it was a launch title, so like the times it did sort of stutter, I think we were more forgiving, because it's like, oh, this is literally like the first game we're playing on this new thing. And also combined with it being such a revelatory thing, you're like, oh, I can put up with it because this is the best thing I ever played or whatever. Nowadays, especially coming like, off of the Pokemon games and just other titles that maybe were like stuttering. I know, obviously different teams and different games, but I don't think, and we shouldn't be either, but like not gonna be as forgiving if it's like has like some performance problems, like noticeable ones. So like even watching the trailer, I was like, man, I hope this isn't another Pokemon situation. I hope that they like it helps that they're working with an existing framework, but I guess we're more sensitive to it now because we've been burned.
I think the only and I'm saying this maybe too optimistically, I think the only thing that we'll have to worry about is frame rate. Right? Like I don't think we're gonna be seeing Pokemon levels of like, ugh, oh boy, these things are clipping through the environment and like this is not great. But yeah, that frame rate might be getting hung up in some places.
I don't think we'll get that from the Zelda team.
Yeah,
because I think they're just like so they know like the cachet, the weight their games carry, and they've had 6 years to make this game. Well, not quite 6. I'm sure probably like 4 to 5.
Yeah,
like
whenever was the DLC like 8 months later or something like that. Like
yeah,
that's maybe when they started proper as a full team. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Whereas I think Pokemon, I mean, they've put out a lot of games recently. Granted, separate teams, but yeah, I don't know. I just I worry about the frame rate in certain areas for sure, but I think largely it'll be polished, or at least I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's
we'll
the hope.
See.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, I mean, that was only one item on the list of things that were shown off yesterday. Are you guys excited for the Metroid Prime Remaster that's out now?
Yeah, I haven't gone to the store page to see how much it costs. Do you guys know what they're charging for that thing?
It's $39.99.
That sounds about right. But
I mean, it's like expected, but also a little eyebrow raising, like, they're a little high, I think, but
maybe that'd be cool for a trilogy collection. I don't know the one game, but
that's kind of the most negative thing I can say about it is that it's like, I wish this was the trilogy. I wish they'd gotten all of them into one package. But that being said, like Metroid Prime is a fantastic game.
Yeah, it's my favorite of the 3. So I don't know when I'm gonna get to playing it, but I'm glad it's there to play, and especially handheld, right? Like I was already thinking last night, like there was a moment where I considered just buying it because I was like, man, it'd be nice to lay in bed and just play this game that I really like. But hey, it's nice to see that rumor realize the third of the way there, I guess, finally. So I wonder what
2 months late for Jeff Grubb over at Giant Bomb's Hair. Right? He had a deal going where he had to shave his head if it didn't come out in 2022, and lo and behold, it came out in early 2023.
You think that bet, if it standed today, he would have to shave just a third of his head, or like 2/3 of it?
It's a great question.
We'll never know. But
just down the middle.
Yeah, which third of your head?
Yeah, did you get a mohawk or
just get the?
I think I would get like. I mean, there's already like that hairstyle where people have like the side of their hair like shaved, and they have longer hair on top and the other side. I feel like that'd be the route to go.
Yeah, there are ways.
If I were Jeff Grubb.
Let us know, Jeff.
Yeah, podcast at GameInformer.com. Jeff, you can write in.
But yeah, I mean, hey, it's cool that it's here. That game rocks. I want to see how it feels, like because they mentioned the controls being reworked. And I saw your tweet, Kyle, asking who was remastering it. When I was looking at the SKU information yesterday, it said retro.
It does? Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking on the eShop page, and then we got a press release, for everything, and I was like, I don't see a developer listed here. But yeah, I mean, retro makes sense, Maybe it's like a way to sort of like, maybe they remastered Prime just as a way to kind of like, oh, let's look back at our old work before we dive into Metroid Prime 4.
We haven't touched it yet. We still haven't picked it back up. It's sitting there.
But I started it. I did start playing it last night on my Switch Lite is what I was playing it on. And I played through the intro, right? Because there's the whole section in the beginning before you actually land on the planet. It's like 20, 30 minutes of gameplay. There's like one boss in there. And it defaults to the new controls, which feel great. And like the game was not designed to use dual stick controls, but it's a first person game, so it feels right. You're still locking on primarily. It's not like a I think if you've never played it and you started playing, I think you would be surprised that it's not really like, oh, you're trying to pull off headshots and stuff like that. Yeah. What the sort of the loop of the game is like, you encounter an enemy, you lock onto them, and then you kind of strafe them and you tap the jump button to kind of like dodge their shots and stuff like that. And I think it takes a little bit of like getting used to, because your sort of brain is like, well, this is a shooter. I should be pulling the left trigger to aim closer and then hitting the right trigger. And it's like, that's not really what Metroid Prime is, but it doesn't take long to sort of figure it out and understand. And it feels good and it looks great. It's like, I can't believe, well, I don't know what year it came out off the top of my head. Was it like 2002 or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds right.
And it's like, I mean, they remastered. I think they redid Samus's model, and then I think they redid the model for her ship too, maybe, as opposed to just sort of cleaning things up and like putting it in a higher resolution. Could be totally wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But it looks great, and it's like, man, I can't believe this is a 2002 game, and you just sort of turn up the resolution a little bit, and it looks this good. Like it almost makes me sort of reflect on Metroid Prime and be like, even though we hail this as like a masterpiece, maybe we don't hail it enough. Because like it's really cool and looks great.
Yeah, we did a whole video gameography season on Metroid, and when we talked about the Prime series, one of the things I brought up was like I still have a GameCube copy of it, and that version still looks way better than it probably should for its time. Like, I've always just been incredibly impressed at how well that game aged visually. So I mean, that's what made this HD thing. And they did do the Wii remaster, so we've seen them HD it up. But
yeah, I mean,
sort of,
yeah.
As much as the Wii could, but
bless its heart.
Yes, but that always made it exciting, like wanting to see it, I guess, HD'd up to the highest degree, or to a higher degree, because like you could still play that 2002 version and still be pretty impressed how everything looks.
I played Metroid Prime 3 when it came out, but the first time I played the original Metroid Prime was like 2019.
Oh wow. Really?
Yeah, and I streamed the whole thing on my personal Twitch channel, and like that game felt great. I was playing the Wii version. I think I might have even been using pointer controls.
I was gonna ask, like, did you just plug in a GameCube controller? Or?
No, I can literally go look at my stream archive and see what it was. I don't remember off the top of my head, but like even then, that game totally held up and was great. And I'm excited to sort of. I probably am not going to beat it, but like I'm excited to play it a couple hours and be like, yes, thank God this exists on Switch for new players to find it.
What do you think the cadence will be for the other two games? Do you think they all come out this year, or are they going to like really space them out?
I don't know. At this point, I actually have low confidence that they'll ever exist on Switch.
You don't think they'll do 2 and 3?
I've never played 2. I want them to do it, but like I think it's going to depend on how this does. And Metroid is just never a commercially successful franchise, really.
Yeah, I guess because it's like, it seems like they would be in our best interest. Like, they already announced a 4th game, like that's happening. So it's like you may as well just fill in that gap for people to catch them up.
I mean, hey man, we're talking about Nintendo here. Like I don't know what to tell you.
I'm honestly surprised they went like the route of remaster at all. Like they've clearly like cleaned it up and stuff. I would have expected more of like a Mario 3D All-Stars, where we just kind of get the 3 games on the Switch in whatever form.
Yeah.
But also to have it shadow dropped was really, it was cool, but it was not like people have been expecting it for so long, and then to have it's like, it's not what you wanted, but it's shinier and it's out right now. I also want to mention, so I've only ever played it on the Wii. And a weird thing, as you were talking about this, I was like, oh, I've only played it with pointer controls. Like, I don't even know what it would feel like with a stick.
Yeah, that hurts my soul, by the way.
No, don't say that. The pointer controls are solid.
I'm sure they are, but it's probably the best playing game for the GameCube controller. Like, it is mapped perfectly for that, especially for a shooter.
I have.
Marcus, you wrote the Resident Evil 4 cover story. Resident Evil 4 is the best game for the GameCube controller.
I played that on PS2, actually. I never played it on GameCube.
And it was terrible. Version. You hated it. We talked about this. You're like, this game sucks. I don't understand why people love it so much. No,
I guess I'll write the story. This is what they're telling me to do.
But I've only ever played it on the Wii. I have it on, because you could buy it through the Wii U eShop. I never got like a physical copy, but I have it digitally. And it just reminded me there's like a ticking clock before the Wii U 3DS eShops both shut down. And I was surprised from this Direct specifically, we got a bunch of stuff that I was like afraid of losing virtual console wise. One of them being, Metroid Prime also being like the Game Boy games, which you could buy on the Wii U and 3DS.
It's really funny. I spent a good chunk of money in the last few years. Well, the Game Boy games, I've bought Minish Cap for $85 like 3 months ago.
I could have told you that. I still have my copy.
Yeah, cartridge. I think I bought that and Pokemon Fire Red for like $160 last year. The year before that, I think I spent a decent amount of money on Metroid Prime for GameCube because I'd never played it. So like, I'm excited because it's easier to fire up my Switch than it is to go and set up my GameCube to play these games. Or, well, I have the Analog Pocket, which is it's interesting. The Game Boy stuff that they showed off is kind of doing some similar stuff that the Analog Pocket does, where it has like different color profiles based on old Game Boy hardware, which is really cool. But yeah, I've spent like all this money in recent years making this little collection, and
By the way,
now
I
it's out
think
for
that color profile thing, that might be a product of like Super Game Boy. I don't know if that's like
probably. Yeah,
I
just
know
the Analog Pocket has it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Like I just didn't know if I don't think it was like something Analog Pocket like. I don't think they created those. But
what is Super Game Boy?
Oh, it was basically like an add-on that let you play Game Boy games on your TV back in the day.
So it's a cartridge that would plug into the Super Nintendo that had a Game Boy slot on it, and then you could put Game Boy games in there. Yeah.
There was also the Game Boy Player on GameCube.
I heard of that. I didn't realize there was a predecessor to it.
Yeah, I used to want one, but it was expensive from what I remember.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if the Game Boy Player, because I have one of those as well. Before the Analog Pocket came out, I was trying to like stream some Game Boy games and just like capture footage. And the only way to really do that was in the easy way was with the Game Boy Player. And then I had the HDMI adapter for my GameCube. And so I just that was my process. And I spent money. I bought this modded memory card that only works like you have to like essentially insert. I think I had to insert a copy of Super Smash Bros. Melee with this memory card in, and it would allow me to unlock. So the thing with the Game Boy players is Game Boy players are like pretty cheap to find, but there is a required software disk that is much harder to find and is the key to using that device. And essentially a person on eBay has developed a mod that you can just buy for $20, and it actually looks way better than the original software disc, and there's like more options for.
Oh, interesting.
And so I went through this whole kerfuffle just to get that up and running, and then now I could have just waited probably a year or two, and I could just play it all on Switch. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I was going to ask about your buyer's remorse story. Did you at least ever play those games that you bought, or have they just been sitting in your backlog?
I never played Metroid Prime. I did play the others,
so that's not so bad. At least you like. You got what you wanted out of them, right? It's not like, oh, I never played these, and now this purchase feels a little nullified.
Yeah, I mean, even if I hadn't, like, I think I just like having a small collection. Like, right. I'm not like a big collector. I just like, I mostly just collect handheld stuff, and the GameCube is like the weird outlier in that. So. Yeah.
By the way, I looked it up, Charles. I did play it with the Wii, so I played with the pointer.
Okay,
that's how So you and me, Metroid Wii.
It makes sense.
It works.
It felt right.
It works well.
I used to be a sicko on Smash Bros. Brawl. I would play with a single Wiimote.
Yeah.
And turn it sideways. And dude, that was the killer setup. I feel like I play better on that than I do a Pro controller.
The Wii has GameCube ports.
There's a whole generation of kids my age where it's like, I remember being like going to someone's house to play Smash Bros. And be like, hey, do you have a nunchuck? And they'd be like, why would you want a nunchuck to play Smash Bros. Brawl? And then put it in, and like, we just didn't even know that was a thing half the time, much less having a GameCube controller. But Wiimote nunchuck was my Brawl and Smash 4 setup. It's not good. I don't recommend it, but I did.
Bunch of weirdos.
Well, I don't want to talk about all of the stuff that came out in the Direct. We have a Nintendo podcast for that called All Things Nintendo. hosted by Brian Shea. He, of course, has a giant episode going up on the 10th, Friday, February 10th, I believe. And Kyle, you're going to be on that, right?
No, he kicked me off. He bumped me.
What?
For a
That's
special guest.
Oh. Do we know who the special guest is?
I do, but I don't think I let's not say.
It's not public.
It's
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, he told us. Like, I know who it is.
Reggie is going to be on all things. No. I'm sure it'll be exciting, whoever it is.
No, it's a good
But
guess,
I'm
yeah.
sorry you got bumped. That's
Okay,
messed
I'm
up.
actually quite busy, so I was grateful.
That's fair. Well, I'm gonna direct viewers over to All Things Nintendo if you want the full recap of the Nintendo Direct. I think we're gonna move on to the playlist for the sake of time because I think we could all talk about that Nintendo Direct for a long time. But that's what All Things Nintendo is for. So let's get into the playlist. This is the part of the show where we talk about the games that we've been playing. What do you guys want to start with? Do you want to talk? Charles, do you want to talk about Octopath Traveler 2?
Octopath Traveler 2. Yes, I do.
All right. So the demo is out. You've been playing it. I've played a little bit.
I played 45 minutes is on my save, so I haven't played
Okay, I've got 35. So you're
right.
But we did choose different characters to start with.
Yes.
So I want to hear what you have to say about the warrior. That's who you started with, right?
Yeah, so first of all, I've been like kind of I liked Octopath Traveler 1. I never beat it. There's like the conceit of the game is there's 8 heroes and you pick up each one to like add in your party and they all have their own separate storylines. And in mine, I think I got all 8 and did 1 or 2 of like the secondary character side quests, and then I was like, I get it. It was good enough. I was really excited to to do that same opening gameplay loop this time. But all the classes are the same. So it's like the same. There are 8 different characters, but there's still like the warrior, the cleric, the scholar, the hunter, etc.
Yeah.
So I started with the warrior, Hikari, and yeah, I haven't seen that much of the story, but it's pretty standard JRPGs and like kind of a feudal Japan kingdom. He's the prince, I believe. And yeah, the combat's pretty much the same. It still feels good. Now that I'm playing it, I don't think I had played a Persona game before playing this, but after having played Persona 5, there's a lot of the same, like you want to break enemies, so you find like the thing that they're weak to, and then you hit them with that, and then they're like stunned for a turn, and then you can combo up on them.
And there is I played like 3. I think I completed 3 of the paths in the original game. I don't remember. You can't see enemies' health, right? Like that's a
you can't. I think there's like maybe an ability that someone has that's like scan or something that you get at some point where you can see what it is. But yeah,
I remember like seeing clips of people like fighting some of those like later bosses, and just like you don't really know like how you're doing. Okay, cool. I thought so. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah, it's and it's kind of stressful because it's like, am I going to use all my resources to like double down on this boss now, or is he going to come back the round after this and kill me because I didn't, heal myself or whatever. But yeah, the other thing about Octopath, I don't know, Alex, if you want to talk about like everyone's got like an alternate like social ability. I don't know if you got to yours yet.
Mine is like you can provoke people. I'm playing as the huntress. Her name is the hunter. Her name's Ochette, and she is like her whole path. I picked it because I picked Hunter in the first game to start off with, and it was like very like woodland area. And I read the description for Ochette, and it was like she's on an island, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And so I think the island is called like Totohaha, and you start off in the Beastine village, and it's this subset of people that are what I understand to be raised by a lion. And they are at odds with the humans that are on the other humans, and they've split the island in 2, and they're kind of the humans are encroaching on their land, and you're kind of like trying to keep the peace. But Ochette, as the hunter, she captures animals. At the beginning of the game, you pick, and I think I don't remember doing this in the first game. In the beginning of this path for the hunter, you pick between like 2 companions, like Pokemon style.
Yeah, I think you just get one in the.
Yeah. So you have a choice between an owl and a jackal, and I picked the owl. I was feeling very avian in the moment.
As one does.
I was also a bird kid, so I had birds when I was growing up. So I don't really have an affinity for birds now, but I was like feeling nostalgic. The pixel art was taking me back. I was like, I'm gonna be the bird guy again. I'm gonna take up the mantle. And so I picked the owl, and one thing I forgot that I loved so much about Octopath is like the scale of the enemies. And so it jumps to you like 10 years. There's like a time jump, like 10 years later, and you are running through the island forest with your owl chasing after this giant iguana that's like the size of like a 2-story building. And you'll have to remind me, Charles. I don't remember this being part of the first game with the hunter, but I had to essentially you're like providing food for your family in this one. And so I was able to capture the iguana. I used it in a subsequent battle. And then when I got back to the village, I had to sacrifice it and feed the village with it.
Do not think that was a thing.
I didn't think so either.
Really interesting.
So I know. So I had to. I mean, it was a linear path, so I had to do it. But it brings to mind that I'll probably get the choice in the future. And it was like, okay, you have to feed the village with this iguana, but you won't be able to use the iguana anymore in your roster. And so I had to get rid of the iguana to feed the people. So I really liked that. I thought that was really neat.
Did you guys, maybe I missed you guys talking about this. Is this like a direct sequel? Are there like recurring characters, or is this like a Final Fantasy situation where every entry is like standalone?
I've yet to see any connection.
I think it's standalone.
Okay, cool.
And I know that all the characters' last names spell out Octopath Traveler.
It's just
Octopath.
Okay,
Octopath.
I was gonna say if they also
there's not enough people for. Yeah, you finish the game and there's actually 8 more people or however many so that they can finish filling out Traveler.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, they did a Dead Space thing, huh?
Yeah. But so far I really like the Hunter. I'm having a lot of fun. It's been a while since I played a JRPG. The last one I like really sunk into might have been Octopath. I picked up Persona 4 Golden at some point in between that.
Is it just Switch? You guys are playing on Switch, right? That's where the demo is?
Yeah.
But it is coming to PlayStation as well, it looks like.
Oh, cool.
I think.
I know.
Looking at
the first one was on Game Pass for a while. I don't know if it still is.
But it was delayed. It was like
it
Switch exclusive for a while, I think.
Yes, I was also going to say I'm very excited for the soundtrack for this game. I think I mentioned it on those podcasts before, but the Octopath Traveler 1 soundtrack is like one of my favorite game soundtracks. And in 2020, because I used a soundtrack for my D&D games, I was in the like top whatever percent for Yasunori Nishiki, the composer of these games. So I'm excited for this soundtrack to also come out on Spotify and get in the top, 1% Nishiki head fans.
Yeah, I remember I loved I was a big Hunter fan in the first game, and part of it was the soundtrack. I feel like that was like one of the strongest areas in the game was that whole area. But yeah, so I'm enjoying Octopath Traveler. I'm, like I said, a little over 30 minutes in, so not very far at all. But I'm going to keep playing, and I'm excited to see, the changes to the other classes. Did you notice anything different with Warrior from the first game?
I don't remember the Warrior class specifically enough from the first game, but I do know in this one, so I think in the first game, everyone has like their ability that they can use to interact with people, and Warrior has the ability to challenge people. And I could have sworn in the first game it was just for like money or experience. And in this one, when you do it, you get like a special like battle ability. So like I only have he can use like swords and spears. But if I battle a specific NPC, I can get like a bow ability. And then if someone's weak to bows, I can use that ability. Which is cool, except you walk up to a stranger, you challenge them to a duel, and then after you beat them, you take their ability, and then their character model is just lying on the ground. And if you try to talk to them, they just go like, ugh. So I felt bad I'm like the prince of this city and going around to all these common folk and be like, ooh, you've got a bow ability, I don't have any of that, and then just leaving them beaten on the ground.
Love it. Well, cool. Well, let's get into Kyle. I know you've been playing. We talked about it already. Do you have anything else to say about Metroid Prime?
No, I mean, yeah, I think I said everything I wanted to say. Like, I was impressed at how it feels out of the gate, and like, really impressed with how it looks. Like, I went in with high expectations, and it's like, wow, this looks even better than I expected.
You playing anything else?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to the Game Boy games that came to Switch. I booted up Tetris and played a bunch of Tetris, and I was like, oh man, I miss being able to save pieces. I've gotten so like used to being able to do that now that it's wild to go back and not be able to save that line piece whenever I don't need it. But that was a fun little nostalgia trip because I played a lot of Tetris on Game Boy. I mean, that was my first video game console, and my other first video game, right? We got the Game Boy, Tetris, and Super Mario 6 Golden Coins. So those are like my introductory video games. So it was really great to go back and play a little bit Tetris and then play a couple levels of Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins. That's like a great little quick Mario game. If you've never played it, like I think it stands up as like a solid platformer. It's weird. There's like a Halloween level where there's like Jason Voorhees masks with knives in their head and stuff like that, and you eat a carrot to get like flying abilities because you grow ears and you can like float with ears. And
what's the full title again?
Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins.
It's also the game that I believe Wario debuts in because he's the villain, right?
Yeah, he's the final boss.
Yeah, his first appearance.
It's cool to see him because like the way he's scaled, he's so much bigger than Mario in that game. I hope they bring a lot more Game Boy games. They teased Golden Sun, which I adore. I love Golden Sun, which I actually played recently, so I don't know if I would actually sit down and play it again, but I love Golden Sun.
You know, it's funny, sorry, about Golden Sun and that whole saga of me buying retro games for Game Boy. I was trying to track down Golden Sun, and I found it at my local shop, but there was the sticker on it was like pretty worn off.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no case, and so I bought it, and I booted up, and I realized it was the sequel. And I was like, well, dang it. Like, I want to play the first game.
Yeah.
So I have a copy of Golden Sun 2, if you ever want to play it.
I have a weird story that I've told before about that game where I was playing it, really got into it, got to the end, was on the end boss, and left it in my car and went to a movie, and my Game Boy got stolen. So I was never able to beat Golden Sun until like in the last 2 or 3 years. I bought a copy and played it on a Game Boy and finally beat it. And it was like this childhood thing of like, all right, childhood, I was like in high school, but I was like finally finished Golden Sun. So I'm excited to have that on Switch. And I hope they bring the original Wario Land, and I hope they bring the original Super Mario Land. I mean, Game Boy is really near and dear to my heart because it's like where I started with video games. So I hope they really blow out that library. They feel great. They look good. Like, thank you, Nintendo. It took way too long, but I'm glad they're finally available.
Right. Yeah. The only thing I fired up was Minish Cap, Legend of Zelda Minish Cap and GBA, because that's at least in the starting list, that's my favorite game of the batch, and I think that's just an underrated Zelda in general.
I mean, maybe my favorite Game Boy Advance game, like just flat out. I think if I had to make a list, maybe
yeah, it's top 5. Like Metroid Fusion might take that for me, but yeah. It's I played through like basically the opening part yesterday, and I was like, man, yep, this game looks great, plays well. I forgot how much I love this soundtrack. The Minish Cap soundtrack is very, very good. And I have a similar story to you, kind of about Golden Sun with Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, where I never finished that game, but I played. Literally, I was on the final boss battle. But like my excuse is not as strong. Where I got there, I was stuck on like the final phase of the fight, and then for whatever reason, I just walked away from it for a while. And then because I was playing on a DS Lite, and then I like for some reason that I don't remember immediately, I sold my DS Lite. And so like I still have the cartridge with like that save data.
Oh, really?
But I don't have a way to play it. So like I was like, I should just get another DS Lite so I can like just beat this game. But now I see it here, it's like,
how much are those?
I've seen them go for like at sort of like retro game stores. I've seen them go for like $50 to $80 depending on who's selling it. Like it's not bad. I was about to
say you could get a Game Boy Advance SP like pretty reasonably on eBay. They're not that rare. You should do it, man.
Yeah.
Just like knock out that, go in cold. You're going to forget everything and how that game works and how all the time button presses work, and it's going to be hell. But
that's the thing, too. Yeah. I forgot, like, that fight is very time button press heavy, and you can die pretty quick if you don't nail those. Yeah, so it's like, oh man, I guess I could replay that whole game and finish it, or I can find a way to access my save and just sit down for like an hour, bang it out. But yeah,
Awesome.
I'm excited to see. I'm excited / terrified to see how long it takes for them to really flesh this library out. I know the big sort of like scuttlebutt online from sort of like our glass half full sort of mentality is everyone being like, "Where are the Pokemon games? How could they launch this without Pokemon? Those SOBs, I can't believe it." Which I wonder how long it'll take, because it took forever for them to add them to the 3DS virtual console.
Yeah, I remember the day the Switch was already released, I believe, when they launched Red and Blue.
Was it?
Yeah.
I know. I only remember because I was an intern at GI when they announced they were adding the Pokemon games, and I wrote the news story, and that was like 2015. So that's why my memory's so vivid of like, oh, I'm the guy breaking this news that everybody's really excited about.
Yeah.
So
when was that? I'm looking
because that was like
it
Red, Blue, and Yellow that
was
they dropped it
June
once.
2017, and I know this because I published a video online once I realized that they had announced. I'm sorry, no, I'm thinking Pokemon Gold and Silver. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. I think it was
Gold and Silver came to Virtual Console on 3DS when the Switch was out.
It's funny because I'm like looking. I actually found my old post on the website from when I was an intern. I was like, it was a Nintendo Direct, November 12th, 2015. Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow coming to 3DS Virtual Console.
So a couple and then Switch was 2017. So it was a little bit.
Yeah.
The 3DS was in its death throes, basically.
Yeah, like 4 years in, and a bunch of other games later. They're like, yeah, you can have these. So it's like, is that going to be a similar story with this? Are you going to really make us...
They're stingy with those old Pokemon games, though, man. They'll probably just release them as like and charge for them,
$40 each.
I would almost prefer that in a way. Like the thing about the service of where you get all the games is like if you stop paying for it, you don't have the games anymore. So like at the very least, like if I could buy, Pokemon Red for, I think it was $10 on the 3DS.
It was,
but I never actually bought that on the 3DS, so I might just do that.
Yeah,
but.
it's probably. Yeah, I guess we should have clarified that those Game Boy games are behind the Nintendo Switch Online subscription tiers. Like you can't just buy any of them, and the GBA games are behind the expansion pack tier, which is more expensive, and that's the one that gives you the N64 and Genesis libraries.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you do have to sign up for those to get these games, which I'm fine with. I guess because I'm already subscribed and like I'm used to this with like Game Pass. Like I treat it like Game Pass, right? I'm like, well, okay,
sure,
I'm already paying for this. I'll play these. Do I need to necessarily own them on a digital device? Personally, no. But I understand people that are just like, just let me have Minish Cap forever.
Are you guys all on expansion pass?
Yeah,
it's funny because
I'm part of the problem. Yeah.
Well, I got a code for it for work, but then it auto renewed and I forgot. So then I accidentally wound up paying for it this year.
I got it originally on a family plan, and when it came time to renew that, I was like, sorry y'all, you got to get your own Switch Online stuff now. I can't, because I was sharing it with friends, and I was like, I can't swallow that $80 pill or whatever it was.
Ooh, cutting the lifeline.
Yeah, when it gets to be that much, it's like, sorry, $50 is already a lot.
Just send them like a layoff notice.
Yeah, right. Like
these changing economic times.
An eviction notice from my Nintendo Switch Online.
Unprecedented Nintendo Switch plan.
Yeah.
I don't have the expansion pass, but Game Boy Advance games, this is one of the first times where I've been like, I might bite the bullet. I don't know. Like it's a
pretty good bonus.
The N64 stuff was cool, but it was a thing of like, I like Ocarina of Time. I don't really need to play it right now. So it wasn't a thing. I also had already bought the Mario Kart DLC, and none of the other expansions were things I was particularly interested in, but I really like Minish Cap.
I've never played Superstar Saga, and I'm really excited to play that.
Great game.
Because I think that game's pretty expensive to buy.
Well, they remade that for 3DS, actually.
Oh, did they?
Oh, that's right.
Which is like, maybe that's the one to go play.
Did they?
Really
I thought it was
jonesing
just
for
Bowser's Inside Fury that they did.
I thought they did. Oh, I thought they did both.
So I know they did
Bowser's Inside
Bowser's,
Story.
and they added the scenario to Bowser's Inside Fury, but I don't know if they did Superstar or the other one.
This
Dream?
this is
Time.
one
Wait,
of
is
those
it Bowser's
situations-
Inside Fury
That's
or
the
Bowser's
DS
Inside
one.
Story?
It's
Or
Inside
Inside
Story.
Story. Sorry, I'm thinking
I
of
was like, am I
Bowser's.
missing-
I'm combining it with Bowser's
No.
Fury.
Kyle is
But-
right. Also, it's
Did-
it's Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, and then
Yeah.
they
Oh,
also
okay.
did,
Okay,
Bowser's
cool.
Inside Story.
So
This
it's
is one of those
already-
situations where I was about to pull it up. It's like there's a chance I might have reviewed this. Like, you know what I mean? But
So
Yeah.
technically, there's already a probably better version of that game that you can just outright buy and own
For $40.
if you have
With-
a DS.
if you have
with
a DS.
extra stuff.
But
Yeah,
that's
I
not
guess.
just. It's not like the original is good, right? That Game Boy Advance
Yeah,
game
yeah.
holds up. Like it's not like. I don't know. I can't think of a great example, but it's not
Some
like where the
ancient-
original version doesn't hold up. Thank God there's a remake that's totally worth playing. It's like they're both good, you know.
Okay. And then Inside Story is a totally separate, right?
That's the third one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the third one. Okay.
That was on DS. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, because that whole situation is ending too, so I'm like, I've got a list of games I want to buy before that whole situation shuts down, which I should probably.
Which I
do
don't
soon.
think
I
you can anymore, or at least the store's
You
still
can
up.
add funds because
Yeah.
my they're linked. My accounts are linked, and so I can add funds to my Switch, and it'll show up on the 3DS.
Oh, okay, because I know they made it so you can't add payment information anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very convoluted, but you can still do it.
See, I already did my shopping spree before that, just because I was like, I don't totally understand what's going away. I know, or like in terms of like, how can I still pay? So I'm just gonna do it now.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I've been putting it off because I know I'm gonna drop. Like every time I look at a game, and I'm like, I'll never be able to play this game on the 3DS again. Maybe like, do I want to spend, $20 now or $80 in 15 years?
Yeah,
And I'm just
yeah.
gonna spend like $200 on just random eShop nonsense that I don't
All right.
need to.
That I'm not even gonna play.
Yeah,
It's like but I might.
yeah, maybe.
Planet Earth might not even be here in 15 years. Who knows? Who can say?
Hey, it's all on
So
fire.
play it now is what your point is.
These unprecedented times.
Have we published a list on like the must buy games before that shop closes?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Thought we did. I know we've
Because
been.
I would read that
Yeah, I don't.
as somebody who has a 3DS but has not touched a fraction of that library.
I feel like I pitched that or Brian wrote it. I don't. There's no way to know.
It's a good
unfortunately.
idea.
Surely no way to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Who can say?
Yeah. Not us. Well, cool. Sorry, I've got so many tabs open of games I'm trying to buy on 3DS after that conversation. Where are the show notes? Here they are. So last game we're going to talk about today during the playlist, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Marcus, you've been playing Goldeneye.
And
Kyle, you have too, right?
Yeah, I played a little bit on Switch to help Brian with a piece that he wrote, but predominantly I've been playing on Xbox. Played like the first like 4 or 5 levels.
Yeah, because you're not an insane person.
Yeah, because yeah, you summed it up perfectly. Because I'm not an insane person. The Xbox version is so much better. It's wild.
What's the deal with that? What's the deal with the Xbox version?
Yeah, I've been playing GoldenEye on Xbox. Even though I have access to the Switch version, I'm not interested in playing with those dated controls, especially because I don't have the N64 controller thing. But even if I did, I wouldn't use it because every time I pick up an N64 controller, I'm baffled that we put up with it back in the days. It's just, I was like, what were we thinking? But yeah, like the Xbox version, converting it to just a twin stick third or first person shooter, I should say, with the 4K upgrades and all that stuff, like it plays great. I loved GoldenEye. That was such a formative game for me because I didn't grow up with a PC, so I only dabbled in Doom, but like GoldenEye was my first real introduction to first person shooters.
Same.
And I didn't have an N64, so I it was pretty much just going over a friend's house to play multiplayer, sleepovers, all that stuff. And this gives me the chance to actually run through the campaign for the first time because I've only ever played like maybe
You
30
never played
minutes.
the campaign. Oh, cool.
Yeah, just because like since I didn't have it, and every time I played with friends, you're not going to play the campaign. Everyone was like, no, let's get in the facility and kill each other in the toilets because it's funny.
It's a good game.
Yeah. So I've been playing a couple of missions through the campaign, and it's funny because like the twin stick controls make it pretty easy to run through, because you can tell the enemies aren't really designed for the kind of heightened reaction time you have with just being able to move better. So like I'm just like mowing them down.
Yeah.
But it's pretty satisfying. It's like I don't really need a challenge. This is purely for my nostalgia. Like it's the moment you boot that game up and you hear that familiar like the Rare logo spinning and then the sound and the theme song kicks in, like it just takes me back to like, oh my god, this was the happiest sound for me when you're just surrounded by friends. You're like, oh, we're gonna be playing this for the next couple hours, just having a great time. And yeah, I think the improvements they made have been great. I'm probably gonna finish it just again because like, oh, I never really played all the way through this, and I kind of want to see how they, because I do like the movie too quite a bit. So I kind of want to see like how did they do.
So like, are you enjoying the campaign? Because like I cannot like that my primary experience with Goldeneye was playing through the campaign just over and over and over again, and on all the difficulties and getting all the cheats and everything. So like that's my nostalgia is like revisiting those locations with like improved controls. It's like, oh, this feels so good. I remember this little nook. I remember this place. There's the camera there. Like as someone who didn't really play the campaign, like is it like mechanically interesting, like having the missions that you have to complete it like over the course of the level and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't even realize there were missions. The first time I ran through the first level, I was just going. Right. And then I randomly saw like, oh, you have things to do. It was like, oh, okay. And then I think you have to like turn off alarms. And then I didn't realize what to look for because the alarms just because of the time, they just look like flat textures. So you can't tell what you can actually interact or destroy. So it's like these red things, I guess, might be alarms. And I got to the end and then had to backtrack through the rest of the level to get the rest once I kind of took a chance and destroyed one. But I actually think that's kind of cool, especially for the time of like, oh, okay, it's not just go murder everyone and get to the end. There's actually things you need to look out for.
I mean, that honestly, that was like a revelation for like me and my brother, right? Was like every games up to that point was like get to the end of the level probably as fast as you can. Like that's like literally the goal. Where Goldeneye was like, at least in my memory, the first time it was like, hey, here's a big level. You're gonna have to do a couple things in it. Maybe some take you longer, some don't. Maybe you don't even have to kill everybody. Like it's kind of up to you. And like it was just such a weird thing at the time to sort of like it more felt like a location you were given to explore as a secret agent as opposed to like just kill everyone and see the end, which was like was really cool.
Yeah, it definitely fits like with James Bond too, like you alluded to there. And it's, again, for me, I'm the complete opposite of you, where my memory is tied almost exclusively to multiplayer. It's cool to go through those levels with the single player objectives, but also like, because the second level is the facility, which I think is the best level in the game for multiplayer
of any game.
Like, yeah, I don't know what it is about that level, but it's just like, it's the one that everybody loves, right? When you play multiplayer, you're like, no, we're going to do the facility, right? And it was fun because my memory of it is still intact. Like, oh, I know where every path leads. I know where and like that helped me in the single player of like, oh, I can circumvent these enemies that are in this one rooms. I know this path goes around it, or it lets me flank them in a cool way. So yeah, like compared to other, I guess, like retro shooters that have been HC'd up, like I went and played Quake when that came to Xbox as someone that didn't grow up with Quake. And that was pretty fun, but that was a little harder for me to like really stick with, personally, maybe because I just don't have that nostalgia for it. But I think this one, maybe it's just it's maybe the license and then just I don't know, there's something about it that's just really clicking with me more. Maybe it is the objective-based stuff and it's not just, here's a giant open arena, run around and kill everything and have fun. I like that it's a little bit more linear, and there's more things to look out for. But yeah, I'm probably going to just run through it and finish it. And it also looks like it's really big. When I was looking at the mission selection, I was like, oh, there's a lot of levels here. I don't know how long they all are. I was like, okay, this is beefier than I thought it would be, especially for like a licensed movie game that came out 2 years after the movie.
Yeah, what a weird thing. Well, I'm glad to hear, as someone who didn't play the campaign, that you're like finding fun in it, because it is the poster child for games that don't hold up. Right, when you go back and play Goldeneye on N64 today, you're like, oh my god, this frame rate is like 5. Like, how did we do this? But like playing on the Xbox version, which I don't know if we totally clarified, the Switch version is just a straight port of the N64 game.
Yeah, with the exception that it has online play.
But even that's a product of like the Nintendo Switch built-in online stuff that you can do with every Nintendo Switch Online game. Like you can play Super
true.
Nintendo games online using that system and stuff like that. Like there's no like matchmaking or anything like that. It's just, you have to like connect with someone, and then you're basically playing it remotely on their system. Like I played with Brian, and basically I was remote playing the second controller on his version, and that's how you play. Which is cool. I'm glad that exists, but it's not really. It's just sort of a product of that whole emulator that Nintendo Switch uses. But the Xbox version is actually like they made it look better. The default controls are modern first-person shooter controls, and it just if you're gonna play a version, you should probably play the Xbox version.
Yeah.
You know?
Sadly, no online with that one though.
Yes,
Local multiplayer, which is the only like downside of like the one that I would want to play with my friends is the worst version of it because it's the Switch version. Yeah, you're like it's this weird sort of like division. But like other than that, in the event that I have a party of friends over, it's like, well, we can play this Xbox version. But still, I'm excited to get through the single player campaign and kind of like have that under my belt.
Like with those upgrades of like visuals and like a solid frame rate and the modern controls, like I'm glad to hear that it actually is still fun, because I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I totally recognize that it's pure nostalgia. I feel like a child playing that game, and it's great. But I'm glad to hear from your perspective, Marcus. It's like, this mechanically is actually pretty interesting.
I legit considered ordering a pizza while I was playing it. So that's how like in little kid sleepover mode of me, it's like, oh yeah, we get pizza, we hang out, we watch Snick, and then we play Goldeneye. That's what you do on the Saturday night.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's going to do it for the show this week. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. If you did enjoy the show, go and leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, or you can rate us on Spotify, just like Santa's Pants did. I thought Santa's Pants already left us a review. Did you change your review, Santa's Pants, or am I just misremembering? Regardless, there is a new review, a 5-star review by Santa's Pants. Says, I play a lot of Destiny 2 and really enjoy. So I have a question. Where would you rate Destiny 2 on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm going to rate it an 8.5 out of 10 as somebody who's played a decent amount of Destiny 2.
So you're using our scoring system then?
Yeah, I guess. I didn't really put much thought into it. I was going to say 9, and then that felt a little high. 8.5 to 9, somewhere in there, I would say Santa's Pants. I like that game. I actually just reinstalled it. But thanks for that review. If you want to go and leave us a review, that really does help us out and helps us to climb the charts, get new listeners, all that fun stuff. And it really does support Game Informer. So if you want to do that, we will be sure to say thank you and read it off on the show. Of course, go and watch our weekly streams, twitch.tv/Game Informer. You guys are replaying Dino Crisis. Is that back on this week, Friday on replay?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I skipped last week because I was really sick, but I think we can do it tomorrow.
Yeah. Nothing heals like polygonal dinosaurs.
Yes. True. So go over to twitch.tv/Game Informer. Follow us there. And while you're there, you can grab a subscription, a Twitch subscription, and that'll get you access to our Discord, which you can go and ask questions and just hang out with the community. Lastly, listen to All Things Nintendo and go and check out their full Nintendo Direct recap. It sounds like Shay has a very special guest that you'll want to go and listen to. Lastly, shout out to our podcast editor, Matt Storm, a.k.a. DJ Stormageddon. They are a lifesaver, and they also host their own podcasts called Fun and Games and the Reignite podcast, which is a BioWare podcast. So go and check out Matt's shows and show them some support. We really appreciate the work they do for us, and it's a big help. That's going to do it for the show this week. We will see you next week. Goodbye.